Oh, good morning, everyone. So good to see so many conscientious climate nerds here in this beautiful space. It's very exciting to kind of get together as a community and talk climate. And to kick us off today, I'm very excited to have Aunty Barb welcome us to this wonderful land. Thank you, Aunty Barb. Come on up here. Give Aunty Barb a round of applause. Aunty Barb, you look marvellous today. Here we go. How's that? I'm Dan.
I can see you all. Well, good morning to you all, and can I welcome you all into country. On behalf of the La Perouse Local Aboriginal Land Council, who I'm representing, I welcome you as well to the Bidjigal land of Eora country, Eora nation, and First Nations people. From our elders, both past, present, and emerging, we welcome you here to the land. And Allegra Spender, we wish you very well in what you do and how you give and how things are perceived with you. From our community, we've been looking after the environment, climate change for thousands of years. Our people have addressed this and lived with it and worked with you. We can walk with you, pardon me, we can walk with you in unity and in harmony if we can embrace each other. As we immerse ourselves in the world's oldest continuing living culture through dance, history, song, storytelling, and emerging with each other. And to all non-Aboriginal people here, I embrace you and welcome you as well to this great country of ours. It's a country we can share together, walk in harmony and unity with, if only you take the time to stop, think, listen, and look at what we have here. For your children that are growing up in this great free country of ours. And it's a wonderful country when we go right around Australia and see what we have here. How many waterways, estuaries, tidal flows, the bush. When we go across the mountains, our explorers and our Aboriginal guides took these explorers across the mountains. But we as a people, on a whole, in general, we can all do it together. We can address climate change. It's not about one people, it's all of us. This affects every one of us and our lives. So let's all walk together in unity and in harmony and address climate change and work with the lady that's going to take us forward with it. To our Mayor, I welcome you as well. Thank you very much. What a great lady you are. And to your councillors that are here, thank you very much. So once again, from our elders at La Perouse, past, present and emerging, and to all non-Aboriginal people, your family, children, to new settlers that have come here and settle in this great, fine country of ours. There's room for all of us. If we walk together, talk together, and if we're going to walk that walk, we need to talk it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Barb. That was lovely. Hi, folks. My name is Dan Illich. I'm a comedian and journalist. I call myself an investigative humorist, and I've been working in climate space for quite a long time now, for quite a few years. And what my observations from working in this space has been is it's so interesting. You know, we can talk about stuff that's happening at the federal level, but us as a community right here, this is where the action is. We're here on a local level, we're doing good stuff for the climate, and it's so cool to have all three levels of government represented here. The previous government here obviously wasn't that interested, but this one is. It's fantastic. Please welcome our local member at a federal level, Allegra Spender.
Hi everyone. Firstly, I would also like to acknowledge the land on which we're meeting and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you, Aunty Barb, for a beautiful welcome. You know, for me and for so much of this community, it's the celebration of the world's longest continuous culture is an absolutely vital point, and also the celebration of, I think, the custodianship of the land that the people have shown has many lessons, I think, for us. And as we're here today, coming together as a community to say, what can we do to make a difference, both locally, nationally and internationally, because it has to start from the grassroots, but it goes all the way up. So it is so exciting to be here in this room today. I could not, when we were talking about this, months ago, I can't quite believe we've actually got here. I really want to start out by talking about the inspiration. And for me, the inspiration came when I was talking to Montessori East, some of the kids in Montessori East, the years 5, 6, particularly the Environment Club. And they asked me, what can we do as kids to make a difference? You know, what do we do? And I was like, it struck me as such an important question. But also it's not just about kids wondering what they can do. It's actually a lot of us going, look, we want to take action on climate, we want to do better, but we're just not always sure where and how to start. How do we have the impact that we want to have? So today was really started with that inspiration of saying practically helping this community of Wentworth identify what can we do as individuals, as families, as businesses, but also as community to make a difference. And also, what do you want your governments to do? And, we've got this, I'm extremely proud, I have to say, of to be working with the 3 levels of government, all the local councils. I want to identify Susan Wynne, Paula Mazzolis, Dylan Parker from from Willara, Waverley and Randwick councils, but also Gabrielle Upton from the State New South Wales Liberals. We've got Alex Greenwich, who couldn't be here, but he's been working together as an independent as well, and Marjorie O'Neill, who I haven't seen, but I'm sure will be coming at some point, who's also the member for Coogee. Because this is what people said to me in my community, is that they don't actually care, what level of government it is, or, who's responsible, or what party you're from. They want us to work together to make a difference, and this is what today and the action that we're going to be taking is all about. So I don't want to, we've got amazing expert panels coming up, so I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to flag a few things about today. We've got 36 different stall holders, and many more than we could actually, many more who wanted to be here who couldn't fit in. So very grateful to all the stall holders. Please go and talk to them, because they're businesses and community groups about taking real action. We're going to be hearing from local experts and change makers about what we can do. And we're also have some great activities for kids as well. So we're going to have face painting, solar light making, windmill making, and if you haven't seen it already, a fabulous EV display looking at old, new and second-hand cars. My favourite is a 1970s car that has been converted, an absolute classic car being converted from a petrol car into an electric car. So go and have a look at those out the front. And for me, I was elected on a platform of climate action. I'm extremely proud of what we are starting to do at the national level with our adoption of 43% legislated. It is not enough, let's be honest, but it is a start to make a commitment to climate action that we absolutely need to build on. What I'm doing and how I'm trying to represent you is to force the government to take deeper action on transport, because I think that's an area that we can do much better on, and particularly fuel efficiency and vehicle emissions, so we can get more electric cars here. Reduce fossil fuel subsidies, because again, this is our public money going on fossil fuels, which is not the future for us. And also about what other actions around things like the safeguard mechanism that we need to take. But the next piece is really going to be for us about working together with the different levels of government about local action. So we've already started to get together as different levels of government. Now, next big focus is going to be on electric vehicles and what we need to do to get the EV uptake in this community. So that's one thing I really want everyone to do is to contribute your ideas about, firstly, what do you want? What are your goals, and what do you see as the opportunities that we should be looking at in this area? And secondly, what do you want your government to do? What do you want? You've got all these local representatives here. They're all in the room. What do you want them to do for your community? Tell us what you want, and that is going to be our job then to execute it. I want to give some thank yous before I pass on, because I really want you to get to this fabulous expert panel.
You mean pass on to the next person?
Hopefully. So a big thank you to Waverley Council and Mayor Paula Mazzolis for providing the community access with this absolutely fabulous venue. So glad that Bondi Pavilion was refurbished in time for this one. Wayne Smith, Nicolette Bowl and John Grimes of the Smart Energy Council for the support, and John will be up on our panel soon. Susan Dunford, Anthony Weinberg, Alexandra Torres from Waverley Council, huge support there. Michelle Rose from Willara Council and Peter Naganov from Randwick City Council, because again, we're working with all of you. all the mayors and the state MPs who've come together so constructively to start to support this event, and know that this event is actually just the start of the community movement and the community activation. And our amazing volunteers who have been here today and have been working so hard on these last few weeks. In particular, Eliana, Leopold, yay, Brooke Thompson, Maria Atkinson at the back, Nick Pello, I haven't seen Nick, but I'm sure he's here somewhere, Martin Lynch, and Tina Brady. Thank you so much. We would not be here without your absolutely phenomenal work. So thank you so much, guys. So let's really get in practical about what we can do as a community, but tell us what you want us to do as a different levels of government to make sure that we can get to Wentworth Net Zero and be a really leading community. And the last piece I wanted to, last thing I wanted to know, tell you is that this isn't just about Wentworth. This is actually about about inspiring the rest of the country. You know, last week I was in Parliament, and I had a number of parliamentarians come up to me and say, "Oh, I heard that you guys are doing this event in Wentworth. Really, we want to do one of those too. You know, how can we learn? What can we do?" So we're going to be taking all the learnings from today and saying how to mobilise communities across this country, because we know this country wants to take action on climate, and we know that the individuals are ahead of the politicians about what we want to do. So this is going to be the start of something that just spreads across the country, and I'm so proud to be part of that. And lastly, Kath is just giving me one more thing to remind you of. We've all got also a two-page handout, which has some of the key actions that individuals and families can take. But also on the back, it puts out what's your plan as an individual, family, you know, business or community that you want to take, and your pledges and your plan for taking action on net zero. And we're going to be asking people to email those plans to my MP address so that we can compile what are the immediate things that are coming out of this, what are the immediate actions people are going to take to make a difference here. So please pick up one of those flyers. It's over there in the courtyard. Kath is just showing it there, and please make that commitment. And my last thanks goes to Kath Naish. Give us a wave, Kath. Who is phenomenal, and who we would not be here without. This has been an absolute labour of love, and I think she's taking a holiday on Monday because of what it's taken to get here. So thank you, everybody, and I'm going to pass on to everybody else.
Thank you, Allegra. Yes. What gets scheduled gets done. I'm going to make a commitment right here. I am no longer going to build a coal-fired power plant in my apartment. That is off the cards for 2023. I'm very excited about that. Please welcome the Mayor of Waverley Council, Paula Marcellos. Oh, yeah, yes, come on.
Oh, very good, very good. Yes.
Isn't it nice to be the first to soil this stage? Isn't it wonderful?
Tess? Okay. I'm very honoured, Dan. Thank you so much for that introduction and the lift up on the stage. But can I also acknowledge Aunty Barb for her most wonderful welcome to country, as always. And it is such an honour to have Aunty Barb as part of our advisory committee at Waverley Council, and to walk together with Aunty Barb in the promotion and advocacy for First Nations in Waverley. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Allegra Spender, Susan Wynne, Dylan Thomas, Dylan Parker. I was reading Dylan Thomas last night, actually. Well, you're in good company there. I also gather Gabrielle Upton is in the room. Oh, there she is. Thank you. I've got my glasses off. Can I actually, first of all, welcome you to the Bondi Pavilion. It is something that I'm so proud of. We actually took us almost 2 years to restore this during COVID, at a time with lockdowns and supply chain issues and no workforces and, you know, vacating of construction zones. So it has been a labour of love, but geez, what an amazing outcome. And it is really fitting that we actually have this amazing event today in the Bondi Pavilion, because it actually captures and enshrines some of the key principles that we're talking about today. We didn't knock down this beautiful 100-old building. The retained carbon in this building has remained. Almost 90% of the original building is still here. You know, there's been quite a lot of work done to shore it up and fix it up. But even more importantly, we have now 220 solar panels on the roof generating more than 70% of the energy needs of this building. And I'm sure that as the technology improves, this will become a wholly sustainable building. So if people talk about wanting to knock down old buildings because they're not efficient, think again. This here is an absolute example of what is possible. Now, I would also like to acknowledge the Gadigal, the Bidjigal and the Birrabirragal people who traditionally occupied the Sydney coast, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now, Waverley Council, we're actually very, very passionate about the environment and sustainability. And in fact, we actually have a local environment action plan that has some very ambitious goals and outcomes and targets and action. So it's not enough just to talk about it. We're actually very committed to making sure that there are measurable outcomes. And hopefully this is something that will happen today. The time for talking is way past. And I'm very proud that at the local level, we are actually acting locally. Because if we all do that, there will be a global impact. And I think that what's really important is that all our voices combined can go to make a very, very powerful noise. And I'm really pleased that I'm working together with Mayor Susan Wynne and Mayor Dylan Parker to actually create some very, very important initiatives on the ground that have a very positive and immediate impact for our communities. Our targets have actually been informed by the science. They've been informed by best practice and developed collaboratively with our local communities. So when we actually develop our plans, we actually have very, very extensive community consultation. And today this is part of what we're actually doing here, again, coming together as community. Now, in July 2021, not only did we actually declare a climate emergency and a biodiversity emergency, I also declared that our council would have net zero emissions by 2030, not 2050, 2030, and we're almost there. Just in March of this year, I also put our community on a net zero emissions target of 2035. Now, I know that's very, very ambitious, but I think we have to set ourselves stretch goals in order to make sure that we get there. I'm pretty sure and very hopeful and very confident, in fact, that given the engagement of our community and our concerns of our community, we will actually get there. When we actually see the impact that climate change has, certainly on Waverley, and I'm sure Susan and Dylan, no doubt you have similar examples, we're actually spending tens of millions of dollars mitigating the impacts of climate change. Climate change is here. It is real. In 2016, there was mass damage, certainly in Waverley, costing us more than $10 million. And not a single cent had come from any of the insurance companies or the federal government, even though we were declared a natural disaster. So this is something that we're going to have to look at very significantly. What is the impact on climate change at the very local level as we move forward? We're also actually looking... Oh, I've got to wind up. Oh, my God. All right.
Hey, sorry, Paula.
Oh, there's so much to do. All right.
Climate change is going to be with us tomorrow, so we can,
all right.
It's going to be, yeah.
Can I actually say, all right, very, very quickly, we're actually looking at sustainability big time. We've got the boot factory that's being restored. We're putting a thinker in residence in there, and they're going to be talking about climate change and sustainability. In 2030, we're looking at a net zero increase in community and council water use, 80% recovery rate for waste streams, a 50% reduction in organic waste, and a 60% reduction in litter. And, very quickly, 0% loss of native generation, 29% canopy and shrub cover, and we're aiming to establish 1,000 habitat gardens established by 2030. So all of those very local impacts will have an impact on climate change. Enjoy the day. I can talk about this until the cows come home.
Thank you,
No,
Paula.
not cows, because they produce methane, but over to Susan and Dan. Bye.
Thank you, Mayor. That was fantastic. Here you go. Wonderful. Thanks for that. All right, Susan Wynn, take it away.
There we
Yeah,
go.
we're handing one.
Okay.
There's
Yeah,
3 mayors today, but no stallions. Here we go.
I'm the Mayor of Woollahra. You give a politician a microphone, they can talk for a very, very long time. With substance, exactly. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are all meeting today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I will try and keep this quick. Obviously, you know, Woollahra Council, Waverley Council and Randwick Council, we work so well together. We come from different political parties, and that's what I'm excited about today, because when it comes to climate, no one really cares. I'm a proud Liberal. Gabrielle, you've got here, Independents, Labor. We are working with the one mission together to address climate change. Now, also, what we do know is that our councils, we can be a little bit competitive with each other. So Paula mentioned some targets. I like to say, Woollahra Council, we focused on climate before anyone else was, before it was even on the agenda. In 2019, we declared a climate emergency, acknowledging the catastrophic changes to the world's climate caused by human activity. And we have joined the city's Race to Zero program and adopted the aspirational target to achieve net zero community emissions by 2030. I know, there we go, so no pressure there. Challenge accepted, perhaps. But we've also been working on reducing our own emissions, and I'm so proud to say that our council operations have been certified net zero through Climate Active program for over 4 years. So yeah, I know, that's pretty good, absolutely. I can see our staff here because I get to come up here and sort of take all the glory and get the round of applause. It is because of what our staff do. We have our Director of Infrastructure and Sustainability somewhere around. We have our Head of Sustainability. Michaela, you are a hero in my eyes. You are so committed to the environment. As I said, we've been doing it. I've been on council for 14 years now. And it has always been a focus for us. I also want to acknowledge Gabrielle Upton, our member for Vaucluse, because I think I've been working with you for 12 years, and the focus on things like the Rose Bay beach pollution, you know, clearing up our waterways. But I also believe that local government is the most important level of government, sorry Allegra, because everything happens at a local level. It's all about what we do on a daily basis. I've got a 21 and 22-year-old, 2 daughters, and if they are so focused on climate, they keep me honest. I keep them honest. No clothes are allowed to go out. It's all sold. There's a circular economy. I think my daughter has decided that it's a good excuse to only buy really, really, really expensive clothes, because then she can sell them for more money and also they last longer. So that's her pitch to me and my wallet. But in all seriousness, Aunty Barb, I want to say thank you, because you use the word stop, think, listen and appreciate what we have here. I think that's what it's all about. It's about appreciating what we have here, but also appreciating fellow mayors, fellow members of parliament, Allegra putting this on. You've already been named, but appreciating that you have all levels of government from all political parties working together, and I also want to acknowledge that in itself, because it is truly extraordinary. So Allegra, thank you for putting this on. Absolutely. Nicola Grieve, one of my fellow councillors, thank you for coming along. But also importantly to all of you, you've turned up on a Sunday. I know weekends are rare, so thank you for coming along, and hopefully you can share the knowledge that you learned today with everyone, and my commitment is we will continue to working on this for each and every one of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Wonderful. Well, we've heard from the federal, we've heard from the local. Let's hear from the state. Gabrielle Upton, come on up here. You know, you've got 2 minutes. You know, you could take 15 if you wanted to, but you know, it's going to be here. Big thanks to Dylan Parker. Dylan gave up his time. Thank you, Mayor, for that. You know, some of the best things you can do is not say anything at all. That was really good. Take it away, Gabrielle.
Oh, I'm not going to take that option up. Thank you to Dan, also to my colleagues here. Local government, we do work really, really well together, let me say that. And I must really compliment Allegra, because Allegra took this initiative to bring us all together. And I have a suggestion after I am able to set out some of the things the state government is doing. So the state government's target is a 50% reduction from 2005 levels by 2030. That's in addition, obviously, to the other targets that we have nationally, which talk about net zero by 2050. We have a net zero plan, which we announced in 2020, and the importance of that is it has some practical measures, which is what we're talking about today. When you actually look at what it is that generates carbon, It's firstly electricity generation, and it's secondly transport. So what I'm going to focus on today is how do we actually reduce the energy generation from fossil fuels that we have. So some practical suggestions. So one, for example, is to put LEDs in your house. The state government has a program that allows you to get discounts and rebates on that, the installation of LEDs. The other thing we do is discounts on energy efficient white good appliances. Again, rebates, discounts on that. Another one is around if you have a pool, being able to actually reduce the emissions that might come from old pump filters and other electrical associated generating devices. There is a program around that. So they're really practical things on the ground where there are rebates from state government. And I encourage you to go to our climate change website to have a look at what's available there. So the other thing we talked about EVs, which is really important. So we announced in 2021 a plan around EVs, a couple of things there, which are really practical. So you can actually use the T2 and T3 transit lanes if you have an EV-powered car. That's really important. That's an incentive. There is $170 million, $35 million has already gone out to co-fund with private investors the installation of the EV charging infrastructure, which is so important, and Allegra and I have been talking about that. We want to transition, and this is like, you know, walking the walk, transition our government fleet to EVs by 2030, all of them, all government cars, all transport by 2030. There's a free tree program. Now, it's been inundated with requests for free trees from the state government. Can I encourage you to go and put your name on the website? It's the Planning and Environment website to register by way of offsets for carbon emission. But get your name on that register if you're interested in a free tree. Final thing, cycleways. I cycled here today. That's not for everybody, but I did want to compliment our mayors who are working collaborative with me, and we'll have a great announcement tomorrow morning around improved cycleways in our electorate. Final thing, public transport. There's the 333 that's here. We're trying to make it easier for you to get around by ferry. More services, more regular services, more extended services from Rose Bay Wharf. There's an upgrade which makes it accessible and a better experience that I announced on Friday at Watson's Bay. So they're very practical things. Okay, my time's up. The last thing is, my challenge to Allegra and my colleagues is that off the back of this, we actually put a how-to guide together for you that really just says, you know, we don't care whether we're Labor, Liberal, Independent, state, federal, local government. Let's get something out to you as a community where you have your links and you can just click on what suits you in the current situation, because like you, I'm so concerned particularly about our kids who hear, you know, the really important and horrible stories about what our carbon emissions are doing to our environment, are doing to our future as a nation and as a globe, and they're looking for practical ways inside their schools. When I was a kid, the issue was we were not going to have any whales. We were not going to have any whales in our beautiful oceans. And through practical measures, we now have a resurgent in our whale population that we see gracing the shores on their migration, both south and north. So I know we can do this together, but my challenge, and I know my colleagues will agree with me, is to give you a how-to guide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabrielle. That was excellent. It's so great to see so much collaboration happening between all levels of government. Marjorie, we missed you at the start, but come on, grab a microphone. We'd love to hear what you've got to say about emissions in our electorate.
Yeah, so it's really interesting.
Peter, do you want to come up too? Come and grab a seat.
Peter, lovely to see you again. Yeah, there's a lot, right? And there's been a lot of dialogue here, and I think there's a couple of things I want to touch on, which are particular things which I've been pressing and we've been trying to get for a lot of reform, which is driven by the state government. One is around strata reform, and we've heard this, a huge number of people living in apartments. One, be able to then negotiate, how can you get solar onto apartment blocks? That's state government reform, major reform. Also around things with our planning system for new builds, for making things more green, more sustainable. That's incredibly important. Part of the challenges we have as well with this is how do we also upgrade our grid as the bigger sort of roadmap for getting it through. The things that we've been pushing in state government is the establishment of net zero commission through the state parliament. So it means that we're actually accountable as a government for reaching the targets that we have. The other thing, just the last bit as well, is around transportation. So I've sat on I've sat on a number of inquiries now, which is really about the transition of all of our public transport towards clean and green. Buses is probably one of the easiest ones, and I say that loosely because it's still incredibly hard and difficult, particularly now when we've got sort of a privatisation model on top of it, where we've now got different contracts, different depots, so undoing sort of all of that. But this is, work is being done. It needs to be done faster. But these are, I think, the big state government things that we're passionate about. We've had a non-partisan approach to the establishment of the RESs, and it's been incredibly important for us to work towards creating these renewable energy zones in places like the Hunter, like the Illawarra, where you've had people that have been very dependent on mining, where we can transition those communities, those workers away well, and ensuring that they have jobs for their communities and for their families.
And incredibly successful, oversubscribed. Everyone wants a piece of those reses. Peter, what about in your council? Might need to turn on the mic. Sorry, yep.
Look, Ramsar Council has been working with its community for more than 2 decades now to try and activate them and empower them to do things. But what Council's also been doing is trying to practice what it preaches, and that's across a lot of the environmental issues, and climate change wasn't necessarily one of them 20 years ago. And I think an interesting point that's come up peripherally to the discussion today is about waste, food waste, and the circular economy. And the interesting thing I find is we don't make the connections, we run with the current fad. And some decades ago, we did a calculation of resource consumption across the eastern suburbs councils, and it was just like the results for Sydney. And you imagine we're using between 5 and 6 planets of resources a year. Okay, if you were using your credit card like that, your bank would be down on you like a ton of bricks. But we're using 5 to 6 planets of resources just for our population in Sydney and the eastern beaches. In the ACT, it was about 8 planets of resources a year. In America, it was 10 planets of resources a year. We had State of the Environment reports coming out every year and every 3 years for the last 28 years. No one's been reading them. The signals have been there, and the connection about climate change and the consumption of resources producing these greenhouse gases have been on the radar for so long and ignored. But the consumption of resources is really one of those drivers to where we are today with climate change. And we've got to make that connection between circularising our economy and the linear direction we've had of all of our waste material and all our resource material. And in Randwick, we've been looking at a range of things to try and cover all that. 60 to 70% of our operational water now comes from treated wastewater, bore water, rainwater, and a little bit of black water. We've got an enormous amount of resource going into reducing our emissions across council. To get to zero, we're down 66% of council's emissions over the last 5 to 8 years. We're looking at resource consumption, we're looking at biodiversity and habitat protection, we're looking at empowering our residents, we're looking at what council needs to do to make sure it can help its residents do all these things across the board. And I'm just trying to make sure that we make those connections and we don't get caught in that current, you know, it's a serious issue obviously, but the fad of responding to climate change and the big thing of trying to get to net zero, when we've got to deal with all those smaller things in there, and don't feel helpless. What the councils are doing on the ground is helping all of us get active and all of us engage wherever we can, whether you live in a unit, whether you live in a house. We're giving rebates now for electric vehicle charging for houses and for apartments. We're doing it out in the public, as Anthony said, across the 3 council area. And this is our 3rd round of rebates we've given over the last 10 to 17 years. Unfortunately, we have to keep coming back to it, but you know, you're the linchpin of all this. Take something away from today where you take some action on one small thing and then forget about all the chit-chat that's gone on. You're part of the solution, powering us to net zero and reducing our circular economy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, Dr. Marjorie O'Neill. Thank you, for this wonderful siren that's telling us to wrap up. With a bit of paper in your hand, make sure you put down the things that you want to see in this electorate, and also don't forget to email Allegra's office with your suggestions. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.